Good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce our panelists this morning. Dan Deasy from the College of DuPage, Peggy Heinrich and Ann Hawka from Elgin Community College, and Laura Williams from Danville Area Community College, and thank them for sharing their expertise today. We'd like to start. You all should have a handout that was sent to you that is the process checklist for IET models. If you did not get that handout, you can click on handouts in your right column there, and you can actually download it as we speak. And so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start the checklist. So the process checklist for IET models was developed to assist programs to develop an IET model. And so we're going to start by asking Dan, the demonstration of the need for and demand for career pathway. How did your program go about determining what career pathway that you wanted to use for your program?
Who are you asking, Devin?
Dan. I said Dan.
Oh, I'm sorry, we missed that. We looked at our we work with the workforce board closely, and we get bi-monthly job projection reports by sector. So we were looking at the sectors that aligned with our local plan as well as our regional plan, and selected specific certification programs within those identified sectors. So we chose information technology, which crosses multiple areas, as well as manufacturing.
Okay. And Laura, what did your program do at Danville?
We were able to look at labor market information through the IEDS website, and we also have processes here where we have advisory boards. So one of our paths was for the CNA program, and our advisory board, we knew that there was a high demand for CNAs, and even though the earning potential wasn't great, it was an entry point for a ladder system. So we went ahead and went with the CNA process, and then we also did one with the a manufacturing path. And again, working with our WIB, our WIOA, and local workforce and development boards like Vermilion Advantage, we were able to determine a high need for manufacturing positions. So that's how we determined the two paths.
Okay. Peggy or Ann? How did Elgin do this?
I can take it.
All right.
Okay. We did much the same thing. We talked to our board. We also listened very closely to our employers who were telling us they had a need for welders and CNC operators. So between what we were seeing in the marketplace, some of the LMI data didn't support it, but the employers were. Even though the numbers didn't look good on the LMI, the employer said, we're desperate for welders. We need CNC operators. So that was part of our rationale for developing those two programs.
Peggy, do you have anything to add, or are you good?
Yeah, I'll add something. Another factor we looked at, in addition to all the things Ann mentioned and things other people have mentioned, are kind of going to the willing. So thinking of faculty who would be interested in being a part of a project like this and would embrace it. Also, programs that might not have entry requirements that served as a barrier to entry, like test scores that were too high for the students. Even programs that might be a little low enrolled, so serving as an incentive for them to partner with us, in all honesty.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next one is partnering. What kinds of things did you do with business and industry and things like that? Sounds like you've done some things with determining your career pathway to go to, but in terms of partnering, what were the partners willing to do? What did you kind of work out with your partners in agreements? Laura, we'll start with you.
Okay, we had a very unique situation. We were working with Danville High School, and they were meeting with our college president and upper administration, and they were telling about several needs that they had, and I was actually invited to the meeting because I used to be the grant writer, so that's how I had a seat at the table. But they were talking about they had a large number of students who were going to age out before they could graduate them. So if you don't know, once a student turns 21, they are no longer funded by the state. So it's, the high schools don't want to serve them after the age of 21. So anyways, they had this large population of students that they wanted to be able to do something to try to make sure that they had some type of gainful future. So as they were talking and wanting us to develop something, I thought, accelerating opportunities or the IET, this is a perfect opportunity to get them into GED class and a pathway in manufacturing. And so the high school actually paid all of the funding for that program for the first 2 years.
Okay. And Dan, did you have any college programmatic or policy efforts to promote transition and post-secondary completion of adult ed students?
Well, we established multiple scholarships using institutional funds and foundation funds as an incentive for students to, number one, complete the adult ed program before transition or participate in bridge programs, or through a kind of braided funding approach, provide free tuition and materials for participation in ICAPS or IET programs.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any other things that you'd like to put in terms of your business and industry partnerships?
Sure. We, for the IT sector, IT is kind of universal. The college already had established an internship program within the IT, CTE IT area at the college. So we tapped into that and we used existing partnerships to provide internships. With the manufacturing side of things, that is kind of we have an initiative with a municipality. So we began looking at municipalities and with concentrated populations and concentrated manufacturing industry within our district, and began talking about an overall benefit of economic development to the municipality and partnering with specific manufacturers within that municipality. So we formed a coalition as a pilot within one of our areas, Addison. They have, I think, the 4th largest manufacturing industry within the state. So we have multiple representatives from specific businesses in manufacturing at the table that are helping us design, determine specific needs, design using existing programs, and also design some customized programming for currently employed folks for, again, upward mobility or moving up within the specific industry or business, and then new people coming in to create a pipeline for them. So it's very focused on that municipality or town and the businesses within that town. So it's been a pretty interesting approach, and it seems to be gaining quite a bit of traction. We are using the model, and we've gone out to multiple private funders to assist shore it up. We've had some interest from a U.S. congressman in the district who's really interested in the ICAPS model now after we heard about the municipality approach. So that is kind of, I would say, even though we've been at it for about a year, it's still in kind of a startup phase, which is sad but true. But yeah, so that's where we've had the most interaction with industry representatives or business.
Okay. And Peggy, a specific question for you. How did you go about, if you're actually in a new program, establishing a new program, how do you go about determining who you're going to ask to be or to seek out partners? How did you go about that?
I guess I'm going to answer it like this. I think that we struggled from the start about how to engage with employers on the initiative, and so, our career navigator in the beginning stepped on some toes of others in our college in reaching out to employers. So in a sense of often faculty feel that their relationships are pretty sacred, let's say, with a welding company. And if they vouch for a student's skill level, their future reputation with that company is based on whether that student is effective in the workplace. So we've had to navigate that as we went. And I guess what I'd say is, over the course of the years we've been doing this, it's led to a lot of change in our college. in terms of how we're doing outreach to employers, partially spawned by this project. Our college has since developed a workforce development council. So for the first time, adult ed and workforce development and all of the other areas that have a piece of that in the college come together so we aren't duplicating our outreach efforts. We identified a person in the college who's our manager of strategic partnerships who can serve as sort of that point person and then triage people to programs like ICAPS and promote all of them rather than everybody trying to do their own thing, which I think is part of the challenge with employer outreach. Anne might have something else to say, I don't know.
Dan, do you have something to add to that?
I don't. Peggy summed it up beautifully. It's important to remember you have to be careful when you tread on the CTE side of the house's relationships, and we learned that lesson the hard way.
Okay. And Anne, can I ask you if you can address the level of integration between your adult ed and community college, like financial aid, orientation, learning labs, anything like that?
Sure. Our Coach Navigator, Career Navigator, integrates all of those pieces. So when a student comes in looking to enter the ICAPS program, she works with them one-on-one to navigate all those pieces inside the institution. And as far as the adult ed piece, we have become very proficient at going into adult ed classes and, you know, presenting information on the ICAPS model as a way to enter into post-secondary education either concurrently with GED training or GED education or afterwards.
Okay.
Evan, may I say something there?
Yeah, sure, Laura, sure.
Okay, so I think it's really important, you know, one of the most basic things of all of this is you have to have the partnerships. I can't stress how important that is. And both internally, if you're, you know, a community college with your co-workers and co-departments, and also out in business and industry. But just from the college standpoint, adult ed, you have to integrate yourself into other departments. You have to know what's going on. You have to know what's being offered. You can't come up with ideas, and you can't come up with partnerships if you never really sat at the table and supped with them, so to speak. So I know here at the college we have once a week we have a meeting where all of the deans are at that, and a lot of the student service people are at that. It's called the Office of Instruction meeting, and so adult ed is at the table with that and just listening. You know, some days when we have that, I'm not reporting anything. So basically that's, you know, where everyone just kind of tells what's going on so everybody knows issues. But most of the time I'm just listening and hearing what's going on. So when opportunities do come up or when I'm trying to work on a project, number one, I've been at the table with all these people so they know who I am. I'm not cold calling on them. And number two, I'm hearing what those needs are. And so I think it's very important to integrate yourself into other college opportunities. And this can be done other ways. Do you have committees like CQI teams or employee development teams? Putting yourself in other departments, other meetings, that's going to help you have that networking capability. And I think Peggy or one of them said earlier, that's crucial. That's the critical piece of all of this are the partnerships. And so the same thing with the business and industry end of it, you know, trying to be on different advisory councils or different places in the communities like Rotaries and opportunities where you have to go out and speak and talk about what adult education is. You know, that's getting you a seat at the table. And if nothing else, they know who you are. So again, that cold call is not happening.
Thank you, Laura. We're going to move on to the pathway flow chart. Your progression of classes and training, the starting point for your students, where the program leads them ultimately, and any articulation of one or more educational pathways. And then what are you guys doing in terms of a student starts here and they move on to a different place where in their pathway is laid out? We'll start with you, Anne or Peggy.
Well, I guess I'll start. So I think it's just something that from the start the Career Navigator really emphasizes, the design of the model, how they'll complete all of the courses in a prescribed format in 1 year, and then showing the additional stackable credentials at the college. And as they near completion, that's the person who's working with them and connecting them up with an advisor at the college. And one of the changes at our college is that each advisor has a dedicated caseload now. It used to be generalized. They also used to be faculty counselors. Now they're support staff, and that's helpful. And we've been pretty successful getting, in some of the pathways, getting a number of students to continue on. So I guess it's working.
Okay, Dan?
I would say it's very similar.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ann?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I just wanted to add that, excuse me, through the articulation you were talking about, through the INAM grant, we've got articulation with NIU. So if a student's enrolled in welding and CNC and completes the initial BVS and goes on to get the AAS, they automatically transfer to NIU and end up with a baccalaureate.
That would be Northern Illinois University, correct?
Right, we staffed it.
Okay. Just clarifying for people that may not be up there. So, okay, Dan, go ahead and if you want to.
Yeah, it would be very similar, not the NIU piece, but the what we have as far as our career pathways that are selected and what we have to offer within our program. It's clearly defined, and we have navigators, student success coaches that walk students through it, and as you know, they also set the possibility and by providing all the other stackable credentials that can be attained by continuing. They kind of reinforce that throughout the process of them going through our controlled kind of ICAPS model, and at the end, post, they're certainly encouraged to continue their education within the college here or elsewhere, also with the emphasis, obviously, of gaining employment.
Okay. Laura, do you want to add anything?
I would just like to add, it's basically the same process, but at the beginning, it's very important that the student understands exactly what they're getting into. So, you know, we always try to give them a sheet that clearly spells it out, and here's a graphic of what this looks like. And so if you start here, your choice is to go here or here. And so, you know, that way they know exactly what they're getting into, and when it comes up later, you know, they know. You've shown them the process, and they understand what it is. So I think that's really important.
Okay, thank you. Laura, I'm going to start with you for this next one on the credentials to be awarded. College credit-based credentials, programs of study, breakdown into stackables kind of thing, and any marketable credentials, anything like that that you'd like to talk about that your program is doing?
Okay, so with the manufacturing model, what we do there is we have the student gets 12 college credits while they're working on their GED, and the classes are business ethics, business ethics, mechatronics 1, and then arc welding and industrial safety. And working with the dean of the business division, his advisory councils have indicated those are the basic classes that they would like somebody to have, so they're hireable at that point once they finish those, but then they're still working on the those 4 classes can go into a number of different certificates or associate's degrees here at the college. So that doesn't give them exactly that one credential, but it gives them a starting point into 4 different paths. And then with our CNA program, what it does, so you have your basic CNA, and you know that's state regulated by the Illinois Department of Public Health. Those first, the first piece of it. So you have your role of nursing assistant, and then your basic nursing procedures. And so when you do that part, you've got the CNA certificate from the college. Then we built an advanced CNA piece where we added a couple of different classes. And we have that approved through the Illinois Community College Board. So we have the CNA certificate that leads to the advanced CNA certificate by adding a couple of more classes. At that point, the CNA here does not lead into a nursing, it's not part of the nursing curriculum, but we were able to leverage the nursing department and have them give points based on having the CNA or the advanced CNA, because the nursing program is very competitive here. So on the entrance form, again, we were able to get them to give us points. So if you complete the CNA, you get a point. The advanced CNA, you get a point. The medical terminology, depending which grade you pass that with, you get a quarter of a point or a half a point. And then, of course, if you're able to get into the nursing program, that leads to the ADN in nursing or the LPN. So that's how we leveraged, and that's how the process works.
Okay. Dan?
For our programming, upon completion of the coursework, the college credit coursework, they get a college-recognized certification, and each of the areas that we've chosen also have an industry-recognized credential attached to it through assessment. So the hope is at the end of each cohort, the students get the college recognition certification as well as the industry-recognized certification and their high school equivalency. We primarily focus on, at the moment, those without high school diploma and very high-functioning ELA students.
Okay. Peggy or Ann?
I think one thing I'd say is, so we have 4 pathways. We're working on a 5th one, and they vary in terms of whether you get a college-recognized credential or a third-party credential or both. But I guess one thing I'd point out is, back when this initiative was born and Jobs for the Future was leading it, the definition of industry-recognized credential was a hot topic, and the basic vocational certificates that the colleges awarded were allowed to be counted as industry-recognized credentials, but that really in the work world, although those are of some value, that's not really what they mean by an industry-recognized credential. So we're kind of working in all of the areas to where we are lacking in third-party credentialing. There are efforts going on to bring those to ECC.
Okay. Are any of you using evidence-based dual enrollment strategies such as paired courses and whatnot? Peggy, are you guys using those?
Such as paired courses, yeah. Well, I don't know exactly how to answer this other than to say that, yes, we're doing the required support course for this. Aside from that, I mean, for this initiative, no, not a learning. They're all cohorted, so they're a learning community in that sense, but there are no classes that are in a developmental track that are a part of these programs at the basic certificate level. So we don't do things that are other initiatives in the college, like the ALP program or supplemental instruction here. And I don't really know if that's what you're getting at, Bevan.
Typically, the weights programs can be something that is affiliated with that. Dan, you want to expand upon that? Because I know we were talking about COD doing some types of things with your workforce development piece with the weights.
Well, yeah, I was just talking about the potential of, because in the traditional ICAPS model, we weren't allowed to do any non-credit programming,
right?
Or more of like that specific contract training for industry. So it has the potential to, certainly expand the numbers that we serve, and the potential for the numbers of those that are, first of all, meeting employer needs. Right. Most employers, if you're dealing with them, and we say, well, we have a certification process that they can go through, and it's going to take a year. A lot of them are looking for, immediate skilled employees. They want it to be shorter term, shorter in duration, and because of some of the way that college has structured some of our certificate programs, like CDL licensing, like farm tech, those types of things, those are all non-credit, so we weren't able to tap into that. So it just, the new model has a lot of potential to get people directly in the workforce in a much more accelerated process, despite the name weights. I think I've already told you about that. So yeah, I think there is quite a bit of like I said, potential to expand and scale up the intent of the ICAPS model with the new kind of the new structure of weights.
Okay, for those of you that are wondering what that's about, this is a process checklist for IET models, and some of the things are going to say if applicable, and it's in reference to the two different forms of IET models, and one of those being ICAPS, which all three of our panelists today are involved in ICAPS programs, but the other component of IET model is called weights, for lack of a better name. We don't want to call it weights, means somebody would have to wait on something, but anyway, it is just basically a training model, so that if you are not affiliated with a community college and you're wondering how you're going to offer an integrated model, then it would be something that you could do with training as opposed to a post-secondary certification. The community colleges can also take advantage of that, as Dan just said, because there are places that they can work within their community college to actually offer courses that are not geared toward post-secondary but toward training. So that's kind of what he was referring to. Laura, do you have anything to add to credentials to be awarded section on this before we move on?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Let's move on to the recruitment and retention. Your target population. How are you actually marketing this to students? How are you recruiting students to your courses? I think Elgin alluded to the fact that they go in and said that you go in and you talk to classes and things. How are you marketing? What are your strategies and plans for retention? So twofold, basically. Who are you targeting? What is your marketing and recruitment plan? And then what strategies and plans do you have on hand for student retention? So Dan, let's start with you.
I would say our most successful recruitment strategy is going into existing ELA courses, upper level ELA courses, and HSE courses, and recruiting within those that are already in our programs. We also do more traditional types of marketing. You know, we have college catalog, and we work with our one-stop to promote the IET model there, ICAPS model there. We've done radio spots, you know, print, those types of things. But as far as the numbers that we get, and I'm not saying they're huge, but those that we get, the majority of them certainly come through the process of attempting to enroll in our high school equivalency courses, making it, community members making inquiries into that. So we capture most of our students through that.
Okay. Ann or Peggy?
Well, another thing we do that is exactly like Dan said, but another thing we do is, and we have found it to work, we'll go back in, and students that are enrolling in welding that haven't enrolled through ICAPS will go back and contact them with the information of, hey, have we got a program for you? And we've been very successful. We call it going in through the back door, recruiting students that way.
I'll add something to that. So this year, the college received a Title III grant, which was an effort to scale ICAPS to more pathways and a broader range of students. And so I guess I'm mentioning that because one of the strategies was for it to become an opt-out model instead of an opt-in model, so that if you were in dental assisting and you wanted to take it in the daytime, you're in the model. Now, not all of it is going to be claimed to adult education because we're getting a mix of students in terms of levels, but that the experiment is to see if having all students in there with this support leads to better completion rates in the college. So, that obviously is helping enrollment and is also allowing us to integrate with the college more in terms of admissions and registration and orientation, because now it's affecting all students.
Okay. Laura?
The things that everyone has said so far, certainly we're doing that, and I agree with Dan that our biggest number of students come from advertising within our high school equivalency classes, so going and talking to them as they're registering, speaking with them about the programs. But another source that we use outside of what's already been said is our APC, our Area Planning Council, and I know that everyone else is doing the same thing, but just making sure who's on that team, and that the information is being shared. For instance, we have the head of the Department of Human Services as a part of our APC. So she's hearing firsthand about our different programs and then taking that back to her staff. So that's a valuable tool as well as your APC council.
Okay.
And also,
sorry. Go ahead.
Working with our WIOA team, which they're also the head of the local WIB is, he's also on our area planning council. So that helps.
Okay. And do you have any specific strategies or plans for retention, Laura?
The biggest thing is, you know, intensive case management, and the person that runs our program is kind of the be-all. She's taking care of every piece of it, but you know, really just looking for those issues that may come up. So for instance, if a student's not here in the morning, she's calling and asking where that, you know, is something wrong, why aren't you here, you have to be in classes. And again, we were lucky to have that one person dedicated to that, so they could farm out things, or if they're missing for a couple days, running them down, figuring out what's going on. So basically just being in a know with the students, and in the class where there's, okay, I had to think about the support-based class, going in and talking with them and making sure, you know, getting a pulse of where the class is at and where individuals are at, and basically trying to head off any problems before they start. So the key for us with retention is that intensive and intrusive case management.
And Ann?
I couldn't agree more. Our coach navigator is the glue that holds this program together. Exactly what Laura said. If a student isn't showing up, they track them down through social media, phone calls, whatever it takes. And we've been able to reduce the number of students who might have dropped out because there was that one person that held them in the program.
Okay. Dan, anything to add?
No, pretty much the same. A lot of direct engagement with the students and the faculty. I'm sorry, our student success coaches and the faculty engaging the students on a regular basis.
Okay. All right. We're going to move on to the sixth piece of this, which is team teaching. If applicable, with the weights, sometimes it's not necessarily, but with the ICAPS, it's always. There are three stages to the team teaching: observing and planning, and then the traditional team teaching, and then ultimately everyone is supposed to work into the collaborative, integrated teaching. And so, integrated outcomes, joint objectives, the 50% overlap, the support class, as you guys have all referred to, and then some acceleration strategies. So, I guess we'll start with you, Dan. What's the format that you guys are using for your team teaching, and how is that working for you all?
We start off with obviously a selection process as far as picking faculty who are willing and have a background and have some experience either in the pathway that we're going into. So we have them do audits of a considerable number of the courses within the credit certification path, and they also work with the faculty member that they're going to be team teaching with as far as planning. They do observe that class to get a sense of pacing, some background in content. Obviously, that's not the most important for them. And we actually have the team teaching model set up. It's 100% of the time. We don't do the 50%. So our adult ed faculty are with the cohort all the way through, and with that particular content instructor all the way through. And we have stages of reporting out throughout the process. We have meetings with the faculty from the CTE side, as well as our navigators and our adult ed faculty. And there is a very collaborative process with the CTE faculty and adult ed faculty to continually modify the support course so that it's hitting all the right topics and content that's being covered within the CTE course or the college credit course.
So a lot of communication.
Yes.
Okay. Ann or Peggy?
Well, I'll throw one thing out and I'll let Ann jump in. One of the things we've learned as we went is that in certain pathways in particular, and I think we're doing it in all of our pathways now, whenever we bring on a new adult ed instructor for the initiative for a pathway, we're doing 100% overlap for the first time around. In certain areas like dental, the curriculum is really challenging, and it's really difficult for them to provide support to students if they aren't well versed in the content themselves. So the 50% wasn't sufficient in those cases the first time around. Whereas some other environments where there's lab, you know, it works better because the faculty member can leave, you know, during that period sometimes. So I'm throwing that out there. And then I'll let Ann talk.
Okay. Ann?
No, Peggy's right. That's what we've learned over time, is that we need to have somebody in the classroom 100% when they're just learning. As an example, our welding instructor, our welding support instructor, has been doing this now for 4 years. So no, 50% is sufficient for her. But for dental and HVAC, we have a new person in HVAC this year. They need to be there 100% of the time.
Okay. And Laura, I have a specific question for you because you said you were doing CNA ICAPS. And so with that, I know that we've had programs in the past who've said that for team teaching wise, CNA is kind of difficult because the state mandates that the CTE instructor or the CNA instructor do 100% of the instruction. How is that working for your program?
So the support-based teacher, which is the adult education teacher, they are part of the classroom, and they're adding value as they're going along. So they're more the observer, but they can add information at any time. And then they take that information back to the support-based class, and if there's something that seemed extremely difficult, then they'll come up with strategies to work on that during the support-based class. But yeah, the CNA instructor is definitely the person in charge, but our person, the adult ed person, is there adding value to what's being taught.
Well, I knew that was the case with CNA because it actually is mandated by the state that they have to do that. Is that not right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the team teaching, Laura?
No, pretty much what everyone else said. Just that communication piece is really important.
Okay, then we're moving on to the transition and support services. So what services, how do you determine what services you're going to provide? What services do you provide? And by whom are those services provided and how are they done? So Laura, we'll start with you on that one.
Okay, we don't offer a lot of the different support services, but we do have an Illinois Secretary of State adult literacy grant. So we have tutoring that happens within that individually for specific classes. If the students are having trouble and they need extra time with the support-based teacher, they get that. We do, again, work with our partner agencies quite a bit. So if we see somebody that's having difficulty with transportation or childcare, we talk with WIOA. If there's somebody that's eligible for their program, they help sponsor. We also work with our community action program because they have different grants with dollars attached to them. So sometimes they may be able to jump in, or our local housing authority. So again, just really working with the partner agencies, doing a lot of referrals.
Okay, Dan?
We work with, for some of the wraparound services like childcare and transportation, we work with a kind of network of community agencies to get more of a referral type of process to access those. But as far as we do provide specific tutoring, both on the CTE side, we provide lab tutoring time in the labs when it's applicable, and we also have tutors that provide adult ed content. We use our college resources pretty heavily, so we use our career services for establishing internships, helping students get internships in the field, as well as assist with some of the job search component. Even though we do build that into our courses as well, they do some formal job search activities with our folks.
Okay, Peggy or Ann?
One of the things.
Go ahead, Ann.
One of the things. Okay, one of the things we did do was we were able to arrange with our local workforce development board to have a case manager on site 1 day a week. He comes on Wednesday, and any student who might be eligible for WIOA funding, we send to them, and he meets with them. Another thing we've done in terms of support, what Dan has said, we have those services available, but we offer a Thriving in the Workplace class that goes along with students who are enrolled in the ICAPS model, and that helps them navigate through a lot of these other types of issues, specifically transition. We've learned over the years a lot of our students get jobs, but they don't keep the job because they don't know a lot of the soft skills that our employers are saying they need to have. Peggy, I think you can probably add to that too.
Not much more other than to say, like anyone else here, I'm sure that the college has a foundation. A number of our students get scholarships, and our career navigator will help them apply and navigate how to do that. Also, that the HSE graduates and advanced ESL students who finish their top level get a 3 credit hour tuition waiver to offset a little bit of the cost.
Okay, Dan?
In addition to what I had said before, we do also, as Peggy mentioned, we have scholarships available. So our goal is to cover the complete cost of the credit coursework, along with any of the necessary materials, books, and other materials.
Okay, I think that leads us into something that is not this process checklist is something that's kind of like a work in progress, but you all have alluded to scholarships and things and helping to pay for costs. How are you having to funding wise? How are you having to braid some funding, and if so, where are you looking to maintain the costs for your program and with your students? Laura, we'll start with you.
So, okay, let me compose my thought for a second. It was right on the tip of my tongue. So, with our pathways, the college has waived the fees for classes. So, you know, I guess it's kind of a blind scholarship because they don't really charge them for those classes. So that's done. And then I had one really good other thought. Can I pass to the next person? I'll come back to it. It just slipped in my mind.
Yeah, Dan, I know you said scholarships. What else do you do funding-wise to assist the program?
Yeah, we use institutional funds and then our foundation funds to establish scholarships, but then we also use Perkins dollars. We use WIOA money for those that are eligible, and then we have written quite a few private grants to support and potentially scale up the existing ICAPS model. So like Bank of America, Grand Victoria, those are some of the funders that we've written to.
Okay, Peggy?
I guess I'd say, and Ann can chime in, that we have over time used different funding sources to pay for the operational costs of the program. So, you know, those have included Perkins for some of the support elements, and back when we had the INAM grant, tax grant, we used that to fund a couple of positions, the career navigators. We had 2 at that time. And currently are using that Title III grant I mentioned to cover all of the operational costs of ICAPS, aside from the instruction in the support class. So there's a couple of others. It started for us as an ARA-funded project before the Accelerating Opportunity Grant came along. So I think we've been pretty successful with our college's grant writer in trying to be strategic at looking at those big federal grants and things, and using them to support a smaller number of initiatives like this, rather than kind of trying to invent something new every time.
Okay. Laura, did it come to you?
I did. So with the manufacturing, the process that I was talking about with the Danville High School partnership, the college waived the cost for the actual college classes, but then Danville High School paid for everything else. So when we made the proposal, I came up with a budget of what it would cost us to hire that person, to have a support class, the cost for the books, every cost except for the cost for the college classes and the adult ed class. I even put in costs for GED testing, because GED was our option at the time. So Danville High School actually paid for everything except for the adult ed class and the waiving of the class cost for college classes.
Okay, thank you all. We're going to move on to the three required components of the IET model under WIOA, and just briefly kind of adult education and literacy being one of those components, workforce prep being another one, and I think Laura and Ann, you guys mentioned that the students maybe can get a job, but they can't maintain a job, so the employability skills piece of that is under workforce prep, as well as digital literacy skills, and then workforce training that can include any of the things that are on that list, such as occupational skill training, on-the-job training, that kind of thing. I guess what I'm asking here is for you to comment on what are you doing to address the three required components of IET? I know you're doing HSE instruction, so that kind of covers that with that adult ed and literacy. What are you doing workforce prep wise and workforce training wise within your programs? Dan, we'll start with you.
So we do incorporate workforce preparation skills throughout. It's contextualized within the adult ed courses, and then it is also, we have separate modules, non-credit modules that our students are required to go through along with the other components of the program. So the soft skills and then moving forward from that into the near the end of the programming, more of the job search, interviewing skills, those types of things. But the soft skill training is embedded within our adult ed curriculum. It's contextualized within there, and then we also have specific modules that the students are required to participate in throughout the track.
Okay, Laura?
Mostly the same as he just said, but we also incorporate our career services department here at the college, and they come in and they do some testing, some personality-based job testing to kind of get people ideas about what their personalities are, what things they like, what things they don't like, and then she talks to them about a lot of the soft skills, what people are looking for, what employers want in a worker. And then if it's during the time of the year that we have our job fair, we do that one time a year. The students are prepped for that, and then the college has some additional resources like a clothing closet where they can go and get an interview outfit and just some job interview prep types of things. So we really use our career services department pretty heavily for that piece of it, along with incorporating that into the adult ed support-based class curriculum with all of the soft skills.
Okay. Ann?
As I said before, we have a specific program called Thriving in the Workplace, and that it delves into all the soft skills, all the employability skills that are important. But one other piece that we do, and it's outside of scheduled programming, is we look for association conventions. Obviously, there are a lot of them in downtown Chicago, and we take our students there so they can see what kind of materials, manufacturing, what kind of machines, etc., are involved in the career they're in. Plus, they also get the ability to network on-site with employers. So we try to blend all of that in together outside of the actual course content.
Okay. Peggy, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that's our primary, that is both I don't know if Ann said this part, that's both semesters. So all of our pathways are 2 semesters long minimally. Our new one's going to be 3. But that Thriving course runs throughout both semesters. So there's always that weekly module, essentially, that focuses on those topics.
Okay. Dan, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't.
Okay. Then we're going to go to the final piece, which is the course approval for any new adult ed courses. And this is not something our panelists need to do. This was just for people's information that there is a course approval form, and you'll need to submit a curriculum outline, a syllabus for the course, an explanation of your course delivery, labor market information support, and other considerations from the process checklist. And it's all submitted for approval to Ben McDaniel, and his email address is included. At this time, we would like to open it up for any questions. If anyone has any questions at all, please raise your hand and we'd be happy to call on you. And our panelists would be happy to answer any questions that any of you have. If you do not have a microphone, you can type in the questions in the chat box and we'll look for those. So while we're doing this and waiting for some questions, I just want to thank Laura and Dan Deasy, Peggy Heinrich, and Ann Haka for their willingness to share what their successful programs have done. Someone says to please ask Elgin if they ran into any issues with pathway approval from ICCB when the labor market information didn't really back up the employer needs, and how did they prove that need without the data in order to get approval?
Oh, I guess this is Peggy. So I didn't mean to mislead and say we didn't have labor market data. We did. We had all of that in order to prove the pathways were in need and in demand and could lead to family sustaining wage.
Well, I think that's the person's referring to the fact that you had said that one of them, that the employer, I don't know which one of you said it, I thought it was Elgin, that you said the employers needed welders, and some of the information, the labor market information, didn't really indicate as highly, but the employers said so. And I think that's what you said, right, Peggy?
Ann did. So Ann, you need to elaborate.
Yeah, it was Ann. I said that we were able to prove based on employer, what do you call it? Now I've lost the word. Want ads. Employer, I'm looking for 5 welders. I'm looking for 6 welders. What was showing, the LMI was showing that there was a downward trend in welders in the area, and it's so regional. We delved down into the specifics and used the employers that were actually looking for welders to use as a submission, and that's why they said, oh, okay, go for it.
So you shared that information with ICCB,
Yes.
and it was fine. Okay.
Yes.
And hopefully that answers that person's question. Any other questions? Dean Weber has a question. Dean Weber?
I didn't think that the CNA class was going to be approved as an IET program due to the income that the students would earn after they achieved their CNA certificate. Is that correct? Or
well, I know that ICCB is actually trying to dissuade new CNA programs because of the fact that the final income upon graduation is not necessarily at a level of a family sustaining wage. That's what we've been told. I know that there are some existing CNA ICAPS programs, but in terms of any new programs being developed, that has been not really frowned upon, but not promoted as much.
I'm going to jump in. This is Peggy to say at ECC, under that Title III, we are going to develop and offer our CNA program paired with a phlebotomy course and lab due to local demand for bilingual CNAs. And we're going to submit it to ICCB and make that argument, and we'll see how that goes. But otherwise, we won't be claiming it as an ICAPS program.
Well, and the other piece to that, this is Ann, WIO in our area is approving it for funding. And to me, that tells me that they see the need we have in the area.
So Dina, that means that probably if you could check with your WIO area and see those kinds of things, and so those are some good ideas for you that if that were the case, that you might be able to make a case for it. Okay? Okay, Greg, you have a question? Hello, Greg?
We might not be able to hear him, but he did type in his question. Are any programs currently working with employers who provide internships? If so, which programs?
Are any of you offering internships?
For the employer agreement for our project in Addison that I mentioned, there are several employers that had indicated that they are going to be providing internships for folks that go through the program. That's in manufacturing.
Okay. And Letitia, can you?
Her question is, which adult education faculty are taking the lead in developing ICAPS IET courses, ASE or ESL? And then who teaches the ICAPS support classes?
Dan?
Can you repeat the question?
Could you repeat the question, please? Sorry.
Yes, the question is, which adult education faculty are taking the lead to develop ICAPS IET courses, ASE or ESL? And then the second part to that question is, who teaches the ICAPS support class?
Okay, this is Peggy. I guess what I'd say is, in the very beginning for the support class, we recruited faculty from the ranks of our existing adult ed faculty at the college initially, but then we would interview them and ensure they understood what they were getting into and what skills they would need. But since over time we've now developed it as its own adjunct teaching position, so there's actually a posting for an ICAPS instructor, and we hire from the outside typically now to do that. And then on the other side, it's our regular content faculty, you know, in the initiative for all the career tech classes.
Anyone else?
For College DuPage, it's very similar. We started with existing faculty, and then we do post for specific tracks.
And at Danville, we use existing hand-picked people.
Okay. We have another question is, who teaches the ICAPS support class? Is it ASE or ESL or who teaches the support course?
For COD, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dan. Dan.
Oh, for COD, it's our ASE faculty.
Okay. Laura?
At Danville, it's adult education faculty, our ASE.
And Peggy?
It could come from either side. It's largely been ESL faculty from ECC.
Okay. I don't see.
We do have a couple more. I didn't think that the CNA. Oh, that one we've already addressed, and nope, everything's been addressed. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Seeing no more questions, we appreciate all of you joining us today for this webinar. I'd like to once again thank our panelists, Laura Williams from Danville Area Community College, Dan Deasy from the College of DuPage, Peggy Heinrich, and Ann Hocka from Elgin Community College. Thank you all. And again, as Amy said, this will be archived if you need to